once again to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to be looking at a project of building a taxi app on the cloud using AWS. So this project was actually provided, and all credit goes to AWS for most of the code that is written there, and I got to see this project being implemented by a YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description, called Tiny Tech Tutorials. So shout out to Tiny Tech Tutorials. But when they did the video, there has been a lot that has changed with the AWS Cognito services as well as the Amplify. So we are going to try to I'm going to try to give you an updated version of the application, and I'll also link to my version of the code that I had to change from the original so that the application works. So because many people have been complaining that they can no longer do the implementation. So in this video, if you want to see how I'm going to do it, you stay tuned. And yeah. So to make this taxi app, you are going to need VS Code. I didn't include the icon for VS Code in the image above, but we're going to use VS Code, and VS Code is going to be our code editor. So we are going to be editing in VS Code, and then we push to our GitHub repository. So when we do push, that's going to be the way where we store and pull or update our code. And for a place to host the website and make updates, we're going to use AWS Amplify, which has the capabilities of linking with GitHub. So we have our CI/CD going on in the background. So whenever you have new updates in the GitHub, they're going to just directly go to your AWS Amplify, which is going to deploy everything for you automatically. And the third thing is a way for our users to register and log in. For that, we're going to use Amazon Cognito, which comes with a lot of handy features for signing up. And then we're going to also use like a DynamoDB to store our information for the rides that take place. And we're also going to need a way to invoke the Lambda function that is going to also be doing the processes, and the Lambda function is going to be invoked through the API Gateway. So if that's something that's interesting to you, stick around, and I'm going to show you what the website looks like. But for now, let's go on to creating our resources. This is the home page, and let me just scroll down to show you some of the contents of the website. And yeah, you can just download and then customize it in whatever way you want it. I tried to add some pictures of different cars, and so there's going to be a sign up button, and we're also going to be having the registration page, and I entered my email there. You enter your password and then you sign up, and when you sign up, you are taken to the next page where you have to verify your credentials, and you're going to get an email. So through the email, that's how you're going to sign up. So I'm going to be making use of the GitHub app because if I try to use the command line, my VPN doesn't allow me to connect through the command line. But yeah, I'm going to be using the app, and this is my repository, which I'm going to link. And I'm just showing you can just go to and copy the link, and then you can pull into your own local machine, and then you can just open on VS Code, and whenever you make any edits or updates to the code, you can just upload them to your VS Code. So this is me just opening my VS Code editor, and you can see all the files that were on GitHub are now appearing here in our VS Code. So yeah, that's how you're going to be doing this. And whenever you make changes, as I said, you just commit, and then they're going to be, and then you push to your GitHub, which is also going to push to your AWS Amplify, and I'm going to show you how to do it very soon. Now you're going to have to head on to your AWS console and open AWS Amplify. So if it's your first time to be at this, you're going to see this page, and just click on deploy an app. And once you deploy, select GitHub and choose the next. And when you click next, you are going, since I've already linked my GitHub before and given it necessary permissions to work with my repositories, it's going to be easier for me to look for my app in Amplify. But if you have problems, you just need to update the permissions and when you click on update permissions, you should be able to get this page, and then you log in. So those are my credentials, but I'm not going to show you guys. But yeah, you just log in, and once you are logged in to that main file, then you click next. And yeah, this is the app name that I had chosen, Wild Rydes site. And then everything just leave unchanged for now, and then let's go to the next step. So for the next step, just confirm whether the repository is correct. And so once you confirm, save, deploy, and it's gonna take a little bit to deploy. So I'm going to, yeah, it's already here. So you're going to see that it's going to be deploying, and if you try to open the domain here, if you click, it will redirect you to another page. You just get this welcome screen. So you just have to wait for the app to fully deploy, and once it's deployed, you can be able to check out the files that we launched the app with. So now the app has been deployed. So if you can see, the HTML and the CSS has been loaded, and you can view your website. And so yeah, that's how we use Amplify to deploy for us. It manages all the other backend, so we don't have to worry about deploying ourselves. So yeah, so I'm going to try to show you how the changes are propagated when I do make my change in the VS Code. So I'm going to change something here, and let's see how it gets propagated. So I just changed, and now going on to my GitHub app, I'm going to just commit the changes so you can see the line, how does this app really work. So that's my change, and I'm just going to commit, and then try to push to the origin. So now the changes are going to be propagated to my GitHub account, and I'm checking. Let me just check my repository, and you can see, refreshing, that the index has been changed. So once the index changes, the Amplify is notified, and then the changes are then deployed. So you have to wait again for the deployment to go. So this can be pretty handy. So yeah, you can see that it's actually working in the background. So it's going to take a little bit for your changes to propagate to the site. So let's wait for a little bit. And so now let me just refresh, and you see when I refresh, it says, how does this app really work? So it's proof that our changes have propagated from our local to GitHub, and then from GitHub to the Amplify. So yeah, that's pretty handy. So I'm just going to close this code, and let's go to the next step. So I'm now going to go in Cognito, and then in AWS Cognito, I'll make a new user pool. So yeah, so what you want to do is you want to click here on the left, and then select user pool, create new user pool. So from the previous tutorials, what the problem was is people were selecting the traditional web application. Since the UI changed, people were confused on what to select. So make sure you choose single page application, and I'm just going to choose a name here. Wild Rides works for me, and I'm going to, on this configuration, choose the email to make it easier for yourself, and then on the attribute, choose email too. So in the code that I updated, I made sure that the email is the one that's going to be used for the login, and rather than creating a username, because it was creating a lot of complications. But yeah, so that's the code that I used for reference to update mine. So once you have the user, in this case I forgot to name my user pool, but yeah, that's the generic name. So you're going to click on that, and then go on to the you will need to copy the user ID, but for now let me just pull my notepad here. Give me a second. So yeah, so copy this code, and then once you have it on a clipboard, copy it to your notepad. So I'm just going to copy the code here. So I got the code copied, and yeah, so you also need to copy the client ID. So you get the client ID from apps, and then you choose client, and then you copy the client ID. So I also copy the client ID on my sticky notes. And now go back to VS Code and go to config.js. And once you're in config.js, you're going to see where it's written user pool ID. So we're going to use that user pool ID that starts with your region and a number of digits and characters. And then you're also going to copy and paste the user pool client ID. So once you get that pasted, then you're going to make sure that your region, you make sure it complies to the one where you said when you were setting up. I was using Mumbai AP South. So yeah, you're going to make sure that you change accordingly. And then once you're done, save, push your changes to your GitHub, and your GitHub is then going to, let me just write a commit message here. And once you push to origin, and you're going to initiate the deployment through AWS Amplify. So now our application is deploying. So yeah, we're going to wait a little bit and then try to see if we can sign in through Cognito. Alright, so yeah, I think our app is done deploying now. So let me just refresh and let's try signing up to see if our Cognito is now working. So from the previous video, a lot of people couldn't get past this stage. So if you were having trouble, yeah, I hope it has helped you. So I'm just going to sign up. Give me a second to, yeah, because there is also a password policy that is set here. You need to have like my minimum of 8 characters alphanumeric, including yeah. So let me just save, and once you sign up, you get a verification email. So I'm just going to open another tab and log into my email, and let me just get the verification code and copy and paste the email together with the verification code. And once you verify, so this is the error that I initially got. So what I realized is I needed to make an user incognito first on my own, and once I create a single user, then it's going to allow you to put other users. I don't know why there is that particular bug, but I didn't have enough time to actually configure. So what I'm going to do is try to sign in again, and that should fix the problem. So I'm just going to click on my users, and I'm going to delete my account, the one that I just made, so that I can reuse that email one more time. So this is the solution that worked for me for this particular problem. I don't know why the first user was always giving me a problem, even when I did this project like 2 days back. So yeah, I'm just going to create another one more time, and then get the verification email. So the nice thing is the email is instant, so it just takes less than 5 seconds to get another email. So you can see I already got my code here. I'm going to get the pod and try to sign up one more time. So yeah, 78. Okay, that's correct. So it says verification successful. You will now be redirected to the login page. So now we are at the sign-in page, and yeah, I'm signing using the same credentials. So yeah, so now you are at the app. So this is the map that is already embedded. So you're going to just select a point on the map. Later on, the app is functioning. When you want to get a ride, you select a pickup location. So for now, we're going to take this authentication token, and we're going to use it later on. So just copy it and you save it. You save it to your notepad or your sticky notes, wherever you are keeping track of things, because we're going to use this to authenticate later on to see if our Cognito is actually to connect our API gateway with our Cognito. So yeah, for now just keep it. We're going to use it later on. So the next step is we're going to need a way to process the rides. So I already have 2 Lambda functions in my AP1 region that are running. So we're going to create a Lambda function. So for the Lambda function, for it to be able to execute, it's going to need to take a row. So if we're to make the Lambda function right now, in fact, we will start by making the row that the Lambda function is going to take to be able to write to the DynamoDB, and and also to accept the tokens from our API gateway. So I'm going to now just open a new tab and then make another in fact, let me make the DynamoDB, and I'm also going to make I'm also going to there's a lag. Okay, I'm going to also make create a table. So tables that I already have, this is for my own personal website, so I'm going to just make a table name here. So we're going to have rides as our table name. So make sure that the name is rides, because if you use any different name, you're going to have to change the Lambda code, the Python code that is in the Lambda function. And also make sure you use string, and the name should be exactly as this ride ID. In case you change, you also have to change your AWS you have to change your Lambda function. So you're going to create the table. So from our table, we're going to need the Amazon resource, this ARN code, and we're going to copy that resource name, and we're going to paste it in our sticky notes. So because we're going to need it later on to give permission to our Lambda function. So yeah, so now that we have that, we can now create we need to make the IAM row, as I mentioned earlier on. So I'm going to just create an IAM row for the Lambda function. So just go over to IAM, and my network is a little bit slow right now, but you're going to scroll down to where it's written rows on your left. So once you select the row, you're going to say create row and use AWS services. So for the AWS service we are creating a row for is the Lambda function, which is right on the top, and then just create next. And for that Lambda function, we are going to have the Lambda, just type Lambda and try to look for Lambda basic execution row. So we're going to have the basic execution row for the Lambda function. So create next, and this is for the trust policy for the Lambda. Just write your row name first, and so we're going to choose Wild Rydes Lambda and create the row. So my row is created up on top there, if you see in green, but you can also type your name in case it doesn't show, and then you can just view your row once you create it. So when you view a row, we are not yet done. You need to add some inline policies. So for now, created the row for the Lambda. Now we want to give the Lambda the permissions to work with our DynamoDB. So for the service, you're going to type in DynamoDB, and we're going to choose what kind of permission that we need for the Lambda to have on the DynamoDB. So in our case, we just need to be able to write the records for the rights that the users for our apps are going to be having, and the name of the rider, the name of the driver and the car, and the pickup location is all going to be written on our DynamoDB. So now I'm just going to add the specific Amazon resource name for the DynamoDB, the one that we copied before. So this is our DynamoDB in AP South, table name rights, and then once you check everything, click on next, and that creates the IAM role. So yeah, that's our DynamoDB over there, and the policy name, let me just type it in. Oh yeah, sorry, forgot. Let me type in the policy name. So I'm just going to go Dynamo write access. Yeah. So we create the policy, and you can see the details, the policy name, and yeah, if you want to check the JSON, you can also check it out. So now going back to creating a Lambda function. So yeah, you're going to author from scratch, and I'm just going to call this request because it's going to handle the request for the ride. So ride request, and you're going to choose Node.js 20, and yeah, you create using an existing row, which is the one we just created. Excuse me. So it's Wild Rydes Lambda, and then you create the function. So for now, our function doesn't have any triggers, and we're going to just delete this placeholder code, and you go to your VS Code. You're going to then look for where it's written for the Python file. So here it's in my README, and if I try to copy from VS Code, it's not looking too pretty. So let me go to the browser and go to GitHub, since the code is synchronized already. So let me just go back to my GitHub and look for the README, and I'm just going to copy the Lambda function, all of it, and yeah, once you get that copied, just grab it and put it where that code is. So to make this video a little bit shorter, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail explaining the Lambda code, but we have there's one point where you need to at least make a change in case you didn't use the same database name that I did use. So right now we just have the constant for the fleet, and we hard coded the names of the drivers in this case. So yeah, in the information and the cars and one also, and we also have a rider ID, and this to URL string is part of the old code, and when I screen recorded, I forgot to remove this function, but you would want to remove that to that part of the code, because I'm going to, but yeah, if you download the GitHub code from my repository, it's not going to be there anymore. So yeah, we're going to have a handler, and that handler handles the error codes, and we also have let me scroll down to where you're supposed to change here, where it's written the table name. Make sure that the table is consistent with your name in your DynamoDB, so that you don't have any conflicts when you are trying to access when your Lambda function is trying to interact with your DynamoDB. So I'm not going to, let me just create a test and see if the code is working. So now we're going to test whether our function is actually connected to the DynamoDB, and if there is any problem with the permissions. So just create a new test, and on your right you're going to give your name, the name for a test, and I'm just going to choose a name that I've used before and just edit. So yeah, my test one is created, and go to your code again and copy the Lambda function for the Lambda test function. So the test function is generic data for the table, which is required by our DynamoDB. So we are going to just test whether our code is working, and the output is shown in our terminal there, and we get the status code of 201, which is in our code represents success. So we see that the body, we have the rider and the name, the username, the color, the gender, all the information that is generic that has been hard coded But of course, when you create a real world application, this will be information from another database that stores the drivers. So now if I check my DynamoDB, you can see that there is now a new entry and the request time, as well as the rider's name, username in this case, but that's going to be an email, as we set up our Cognito to be holding that information. So yeah, the Cognito is going to pass the information for our users through the API gateway to the Lambda function. And so for now, what we have is the amplifier and the Cognito, but we need a way to be able to invoke that Lambda function that we had. So yeah, so we're going to be making the part for the API gateway. So now let me just create a new page and link to my API gateway. So you want to scroll where it's written REST API and build. So you're going to build your API, give it a name. So let me name my API. I'm just going to call it Wild Rydes. So and yeah, that's it for the API, and you just want to click create API. So once your API is created, make sure that you're in the root, and you want to go to Authorizers on the left there, because we need to add an authorizer for our API gateway, so that we make sure that the correct users are the ones that are being allowed through our app. So make sure you choose the Lambda function that is the same as the one you just created. Oh no, for in this case we are actually going to be using the Cognito, not our Lambda function, to allow us to have access. So I made a mistake here. Let me just switch back to Cognito, and we're going to be using the user pools. The user pool name for, in my particular case, let me just look for the tab. It's user pool with these random numbers U9KA88S. So I'm just going to confirm that's the correct user pool, and yeah, let's give it a name. So yeah, we want our Cognito to be the one handling the authentication. So if the authentication token is passed through, it comes to our API gateway, which then allows the user to be able to access our services. So here you're just going to leave it. So let me just make sure I have on the token source, just write authorization for now. That's going to be the name for the token, and here you just leave it as it is, and you want to go on and create the authorizer. So we now have the authorizer created, so just click on it and then copy the authorization ID. So we want to test whether the authorizer is actually working. So yeah, we get the quad 200, and it proves that our authorizer is actually authenticating our token. So that shows that the token that we initially generated when we created that first user, passing it through this authorizer in API gateway, we can see that our code is working. So I'm going to go to our resources, and we're going to create a resource, and the resource is ride, and you're going to enable cross region. And this is important because it says if you don't allow cross region resource sharing, because we are using different domain names, it's going to be, the services are going to be producing a lot of errors. So let me close all these notifications, and yeah, so you want to click on rides, right? And then you say create method, and then create a lambda method. for post. So yeah, and don't forget to allow Lambda proxy integration, and make sure that the region is the same, and choose your Lambda function. Remember, my name was request write, and I'm going to choose the same. So choose request write and Lambda, everything is okay, and you create the method. So yeah, the method is created, and you want to go to the method request settings and edit. So we want to make sure that the request is using the authenticator that we created, and yeah, so just click that, and that is going to be given to our Lambda function. So you could test the code, but I tried running the test, but I think I made a mistake. So you can leave this part, and you're going to go and deploy the changes that you made to your API. So once you make any change, you need to deploy it so that your API is updated. Yeah, so once you create and you deploy to the dev staging, and you make sure you copy this invocation URL, and then you paste it in your notes. So I'm just going to copy it, and then now let's go to VS Code, and we're going to just look for where it's written config.js, and then we go to config.js, and then on the invocation URL you're going to paste the code there, the URL I mean. Once you paste, save, and do the same procedure again. Go to your GitHub and you push to your GitHub, first commit, and then once you commit, you push to the origin, and yeah, so once you push to the origin, we should have let me go to my Amplify, and then okay, yeah, so this is my GitHub, and you see that our push was successful. So yeah, the file config.js is loading, and let me just go to my deployments. So now you can see that it's deploying. So yeah, wait for a little bit, and then I'll come back. So now that our code is deployed, you can go back to that page where you already had signed in, and you try to order a ride. So now, since we connected our Lambda function with the API Gateway, we should be able to so you want to make sure that you are at ride. If in case you had closed the page, just go to ride.html, and your authentication is still there. So you select a position on the map. Yeah, we're in Seattle, and then just choose. So what I noticed, I was getting this error. So I had to pause and try to troubleshoot where the error is coming from, but finally I got to work. So what I had to do is to double check everything. So for the post, I needed to check whether it was actually working, and yeah, so what I had to do is to go to the stages and make sure that I had the correct invocation, because I was copying a lot of things, so I could have made a mistake that way. But maybe you won't make a mistake. But and on the authorization token, you make sure you don't have any spaces or anything. So I copied it one more time and made sure I had the correct authorization for this particular user, so that we are allowed through the API Gateway. So yeah, I make sure it's actually working. So you can see it's producing this 200, and it has the information, my username, my email there. And yeah, so if you do get any problem with the API Gateway, because we had to set up a lot of things, just redo it again. And yeah, if at any point in the project you find yourself having an error, just make sure you redo everything. And yeah, I'm re-enabling CORS, because for the first time I enabled it for the main branch when I was setting up, but now I'm also enabling it for the riders branch, just to be sure. So yeah, I made sure that everything was as it should be. So if you made a mistake, just double check like what I'm doing, and you shouldn't have any problems. Double check whether you have the correct user pool as well as the region, and just check your clients. And those are some of the troubleshooting steps that you can always take and make sure you have everything correct. So once I was certified that everything is working correctly, so I just went back, and you have to redeploy the API again, the API Gateway. So now, see, if we select a position, our ride comes to where we selected, and we get the name and the information of the rider right on the right there. And now going to our DynamoDB, we actually see right now we have 4 records, right? So you can check the time and for the request, as well as the username, and all the information is being stored in our DynamoDB. And now going back to, if I decide to choose another location, let me move away from Seattle, let me go somewhere else. Let's see where we can go. Let's say we are in Mexico City. I also make a ride and just choose any random location. I've never been to Mexico actually, and request a unicorn. You get your ride, and you get Rosanare, and has arrived. Then I just made a random request right now so that you see that our DynamoDB is actually working. So there we had 4 rides, now we have 6 rides that have been completed in total. So that now our application is actually working, and you can take the URL and share it with your friends, make them sign in, sign up, and show them you can actually manage the user logins. You can actually delete a user, and to just show that you actually know how the back end is working. So that is it for this application. And if you're in the free tier, you shouldn't worry about any charges, unless you are using it too frequently. But you should always clear up everything that you launch, all the resources. But for now, that's goodbye, and I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions for me, you can link with me. I will leave my website as well as my email in the description. So thank you. See you in the next one.